If you're a federal employee and you're wondering how much severance you'd get in a RIF, a reduction in force, you're in the right place. We'll go over that right now. So first of all, who does severance not apply to? It doesn't apply. So first of all, who does severance not apply to? It applies to everyday employees like you and me. It doesn't apply to presidential appointments, emergency appointments, Schedule C appointments, non-career SES, term appointments. But for regular, everyday federal employees, civil servants, this would apply. So career employees, career conditional, SES, this would apply to that. So if you're terminated in a RIF, not if you quit, you would be entitled to severance pay. If during the RIF process they offer you a reasonable offer for another position and you turn it down, you wouldn't be eligible for this. But assuming your agency went through the process, they determined you were eligible for a RIF, they didn't offer you another appointment, what would you get? So if you are eligible for an immediate pension because you have 20 years of service and you're over 50, or you have 25 years of service at any age, this wouldn't apply. But if you're like a friend of mine who has 18 years of service, this would apply. So we'll go through an example in a second, but assuming you had, say, 20 years of service and you weren't 50, so you're not eligible for the VERA, for the first 10 years of service, you get 1 week of pay for every year of service. For the second 10 years, for more than 10 years, those years you would get 2 weeks of pay for each year of service. And let's say you had 20 years and 3 months or 20 years and 6 months. For each of 3 months, you would get another 25%. So 20 years and 3 months, you would get 0.25 of a week here. 6 months, you would get 0.50, half. 3/4 for 9 months. And then if you had a full year, obviously it would fall under one of these. You also get a bonus if you're over 40 years of age. And this says 2.5% for every 3 months of age over 40. And in a previous video, I made a mistake and I'm going to delete the video. So I thought that only applied a certain way, but this applies actually to the whole amount. So 2.5 times 4 is 10%. So if you are 41 years of age, you would get this number plus 10%. If you are 42, that's 10% plus 10%. So you would get this number plus 20%. If that sounds confusing, don't worry. We're going to go over it in a second. But here's a worksheet from OPM that I'll put in the documents. So we're going to go over the number you get, and let's say you are 44 years of age, whatever the number you would be entitled to in terms of severance, the dollar amount, you would take that and you would multiply by 1.4. If you were 44 in 3 months, 1.425, 44 in 6 months, 1.450. So you would do the calculation we're about to do. If you're over 40, you would look up your age here, and then you would multiply whatever number you get by your age, and then that would give you the final number. So we'll go over an example here. Let's assume that the person makes $104,000 a year. I know some of you make a lot more than that, and some of you make a lot less than that, but I picked $104,000 because that works out to $2,000 a week, and it makes the math easier. And then you can add your own individual numbers to make it easier, to make it accurate. And I'll just use this as an example so you can follow along. So as I said, you're getting $2,000 a week. So for the first 10 years, you would get 1 week's pay for each of those. For the next 10 years, or for everything over 10 years, you would get 2 weeks of pay for those years. And if you're over 40, you get that extra 10% for each year that you're over 40. And here's an example. This is somebody who's 44 with 15 years of service. So they're not eligible for the VERA. They're not eligible for the discontinued service retirement. But if they were terminated in a RIF, meaning the agency let them go, not that they quit or resigned, then this is what they would be eligible for. So as I said, $104,000 works out to $2,000 a week. So if they have 15 years of service, for the first 10 years, they get 1 week, so that would be $20,000. For the next 5 years, they get 2 weeks for each of those years, so that would be $20,000. And then for the years over 40, you would get an additional 10%. So if they're 44 years old, that's 4 years that they're over 40. So 10, 10, 10, 10, that's 40. So you would multiply that by 1.4, and that would get you to a number of 56,000. So we took the calculation, we went to 44 years old, it said multiply by 1.4, and that's why we took the number that we got here and we multiplied by 1.4, and we came up with 56,000. So if they were under 40, they would be entitled to 40,000, but because they're 44, based on their age, that would bump them to 56. Now you can imagine if they had, let's say, 19 years of service and they started when they were 40, that this number might get pretty high, but there's a limit. So the amount of severance can't exceed 52 weeks pay, but other than that, that's what you'd be entitled to. And there is a worksheet that is provided by OPM where you can work this through yourself. But with the examples I've just provided, I think you'll have an understanding of how it works. So you would take your age and your years of service, and you get a rough idea with this. You get, as I said, 1 week pay for the first 10 years of service, 2 weeks for the next 10 years of service. And then if you're over 40, you can go to this chart, which I'll put in the comments, look up your exact age and find out exactly what number you multiply it by, and then you'll get a number which will give you the exact severance that you're entitled to. So I did the calculation wrong on the other videos, and somebody posted it in the comments correcting it. So I apologize for that, and I will delete the other videos because I don't want to put any inaccurate information out there. But if some of you are facing this and your HR people are not available because they're swamped, here's some basic information, and links will be in the comments so that you can verify this for yourself. And I will add a disclaimer here. This is for informational purposes only. It's not considered legal or financial advice. And nothing you see here creates an attorney-client relationship. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. I'm just a former federal employee who went through the VERA process, and it was confusing for me, but having gone through it, if I have some information that's helpful, I'd like to pass it on. So anyway, like and subscribe, everyone, and have a great day, and good luck out there.